complimentary things about him before that I'll say again. It'll be maybe a little bit more forced this time because I already said it once. But
Oh wow.
yeah, I was introduced to this guy through doing commentaries on him of a contest in Sweden with MT Pop and Funky Mo and Inksy. Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
Yes. Street
judged by
Star.
Rashad. And I was like, oh, this guy's good, da da da. And then I saw him again in the Summer Dance Forever prelim. I was like, oh, it's the same dude. It's the Scandinaviator. Da da da. He's good. And then the next thing I know, I'm like at Slim's class or something, and then there he is. I'm like, whoa, you're not in Sweden. You're in L.A. And
Yeah.
we have become friends, and he's awesome, and we have really good
High five.
conversations. And I thought, as an experiment, what I'd like to do is have like a topic. And the topic that I'm interested in is because of how much he has traveled and where he's traveled and the scenes that he has seen, is to just talk about maybe what each region kind of can learn from the other region, as the dance really goes global, and just kind of what the differences are. So we were starting by saying that you have been, like, where you've been.
Yeah, I've been to. I'm from Sweden originally, and I've been to Norway, the Netherlands, the UK, and France. When it comes to popping specifically,
Yeah.
in Europe, and I've been to a few other European countries as well.
Yeah. And then you've been in LA for
Since August last year, so
Yeah.
about 10 months
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and has been,
Closing in
at
on a
least
year.
in what I have seen, pretty active at what the various things that are going on around here. So I feel like has at this point a pretty good, solid sense of like what the LA scene is and what it's like.
Yeah.
So right before we went live, we were just starting to talk about like the big contests. So maybe that's like a good place to start.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the thought that I was thinking of was that I see some fears, I guess I would call it, about the big contests taking over popping, away from the cipher, away from America, away from the smaller, from the call out battles.
So, like, for instance, that the biggest contest used to boo is in France, and then KOD is in Korea.
Exactly,
And
that-
that it's the locus. There's freestyle session, at least in my opinion, doesn't have, popping at least, nearly the same cachet as KOD or used to.
Yeah, exactly. It probably doesn't have the same budget.
Right.
A lot of the kids that grow up in these regions probably doesn't look towards freestyle session as the
Right.
event to be at.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, Just the Boo has probably the label as the world championships
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. And then Summer Dance Forever also.
Summer
being
Dance
in-
Forever as
being
well.
Also in Europe.
Yeah, being probably the biggest
Yeah.
popping competition when it comes to both participants as well as spectatorship right now.
Yeah, and I think
At least
also just
one-on-one.
the like, because the videos seem to come off much better, it feels like that also gives it a lot of prestige, specifically
Yeah.
among dancers.
Yeah, totally, and it's one of the few popping events that has a really good vibe to it. It's not specifically a popping event, but the popping day, the audience really brings the fire, and it's kind of like, which is really rare in Europe, usually for popping, I would say. Yeah, so I was talking about, because we're in this age where everything's you can watch everything right now. Footage comes from every battle. People are following these battles from all across the world, and what I experience with Juice the Boo mainly and KOD to an extent is that I'm not sure if they're gonna remain as dominant as they are right now, because of mainly the quality of the music at Just the Boo. I feel like the DJs are really lowering the quality at Just the Boo. I personally enjoy watching the qualifiers a lot more, where there's local DJs compared to the one in Paris. And the prelim day is a lot better than the big stage day, the day on the big stage in the arena.
It's so funny. I've been working for like 3 months on a video about Juste Debout with this. I've almost been like too scared to like voice these kind of opinions. It's just the truth. But
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. Everything you say, I
Yeah.
agree with. And I think it's almost part of the reason I wanted to make this video, or am making this video, is that it seems almost like a very common consensus. This doesn't even seem, what you just said
No,
doesn't even seem
no,
controversial
not a lot.
among
I've spoken with a
dancers.
lot of
It's like,
people
yeah, you talk
about
to a
this.
lot of people and everyone kind of agrees that there's something kind of, especially the fact that the prelims are more exciting than
Yeah, they're more hype.
that's like,
Yeah, and you can see that both if you measure it in the terms of of viewership, the older battles has a lot more views than the newer ones.
oh,
When up to the
interesting.
final, they don't upload as many of the battles as
Yeah,
well. And
interesting.
I've never been to Just Bull in the arena,
Okay.
but there seem
Yeah,
to be
I
a
have.
lot less people spectating
Ah,
at the arena as well. So I don't know about that, but the viewership, and I think
definitely.
it's because the quality has dropped when it comes to the music.
It's funny because I was there in, I want to say 2014 or 2015, whatever, and the I was extremely shocked. It was like something that I had dreamed of doing for a long time, and then when I was actually there, I was like, "Wow, this I'm not particularly enjoying this." And it was a real. It took me a long time to think about what had happened and why that was. So anyway, to continue, not to just like bash these events
No,
endlessly.
not at all.
What could you imagine growing that would change or supplant these big contests?
Mm, Either a focus on other parts of the scene other than competitions and battling. That
So what?
might
So I've
happen.
yeah. I mean, you're speaking my language. But one of the things that I have definitely discussed with people that are more experienced than I am with like event promotion is this idea that if there's no contest, that people don't show up. And it was like, oh, I hadn't considered that people say they're like down for the community or something like that,
Yeah.
but then the reality is that the contest is what brings people together.
Yeah, totally.
My thoughts on this, I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but whatever, is I feel like there needs to be an evolution in what the contests and the battles are. I feel like even if you just look at the fact that things like Battle Fest and Ghetto Style and I Love This Dance seem to be growing, the idea of pre-planned exhibitions or the call out battle thing like Street Star did, just like
Yeah.
innovations on the format of these things to make them. It's like the goal should be from just a business perspective, but as well as like an entertainment and creative perspective, to create an environment that makes the most hype
Yeah.
thing, whatever the thing is,
Totally.
um, and the doing of that. I feel like we need to get people from like Montreal in on this
Yeah.
conversation because it's
Canada
so,
is by far the most hype when
yeah.
it comes to battles, I would say. And Street Star, I think, is a really good example of this. Street Star is the biggest event in Sweden. I think it's the biggest in Scandinavia. And they started out working with Just Boo, and they held the Swedish or the Scandinavian qualifiers for the competition, but then they split up, and for a few years, they kind of went on to these big stages. They tried different things, and and for popping specifically, they had a funk style battle with a breaker, a locker, and a popper that competed in a crew battle. And there were some good battles coming out of the format, but last year and this year as well. Didn't attend this year, but last year they did another format which they called Back to the Club, where they were the nightclub. The prelims were cipher prelims, which I think is or I hope becomes the future of
Yeah,
prelims.
describe the cipher prelims.
A cipher prelim, or how they held it there, was an hour with an open floor and judges moving around the floor and picking out the top 8 or 10. I think it was the top 8, based on what they saw on in the ciphers. And I think that what that did was it not only made it gave options to look, because naturally different ciphers formed of people, so you could naturally pick who you wanted to look at. So that's really good as from an observer perspective or from an audience perspective, because prelims are a drag to look at, like especially if you're not a
So
dancer.
boring.
Especially at the bigger events as
Yeah.
well. Like Summer Dance Forever, you have 200 people.
Yeah.
Maybe a good 20, 30 of them are enjoyable to non-dancers.
Yeah.
Maybe a good 40 of them are enjoyable to someone who knows popping.
Yeah.
It's not a good format. It's not an
No.
audience-friendly format.
No.
Whereas this allowed people to
Huh.
pick.
Do you know what was
for the-
kind of like that? Not exactly, but where I can see that is the house dance conference that Brian Green did in New York. Had it wasn't the contest format, but it really felt inviting. It was in a club, and it felt inviting to non-dancers. Of all the things I've ever brought non-dancers to, they enjoyed that the most, and a big part of it was that they did feel like there were different ciphers happening that had different vibes, and they could kind of go between them. That feels very right to me, and I think more exciting than anything, I actually think I would probably join a contest like that.
Yeah.
The main reason I stopped entering contests in 2010, I entered a 2-on-2 with Icon in Portland, and we made it to the semis or the finals and then didn't win, was I was just so bored. After the prelims, there was this weight that, and the vibe, they were like playing b-boy music, and I wasn't in the mood, and I also had it on my mind that I'm going to have to, you get into that place when you're in a contest where you're like, all the performance anxiety, stage fright kind of stuff. It's that is there when you're in the contest versus when you're just attending something.
Yeah.
And it just felt like everything took too long, and I didn't know when they were going to say when it was going to start, so I didn't feel like I could just go somewhere else for a while and then come back and be like, oh, cool. So yeah, and more than anything, what I like about what you're saying is I feel like you would see some crazy shit go down in a thing like that, because some cipher, because there is a competitive element. It's different than a club, because in a club you're theoretically not being judged, but because you're being judged, but you also know it's a cipher and somebody goes in hard, I feel like all of a sudden the ante starts going up.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't remove the competitive element, which is positive.
Right. I didn't even realize that the prelim removes the standard prelim removes the.
In some ways it does, but it keeps it in one way because everyone's out to going out on the floor getting judged.
The it's your turn now.
Exactly.
Is really what diminishes the So another thing that happened to me, I went out for the TV show. Probably that same year. It was 2010, same year. I went out for the TV show So You Think You Can Dance. What I didn't realize at the time is that before you get to perform for the judges, there's like 6 rounds of cuts. I thought auditioning meant you just go perform for the judges. So I didn't think I was going to make it, but I made it to the judges. And the worst part about the whole experience was just feeling so used. They're like, you just sit here, all of you people with your numbers on, you just sit here until we tell you we're ready for the next round. You can't leave, you can't do this, you can't. And that feeling felt so uncreative that it was like, I don't ever want to do things like this again.
Yeah, like with the cipher format, which they did, I saw call-outs happening. I saw people leaving the contest just wanting to get down. I saw people move in between ciphers. I feel like what Street Star did that year was probably the best vibe I've had at a Swedish event in a long time. So I hope they keep that up, because I see that as the future, because I think it's the best balance between the competitors, because you have to think of the competitors. You cannot only think of the audience, because a majority of people at current events are competitors as well, often. At least at the big events.
For sure.
So you have to think of the competitors, and I feel like, I've never met someone who's like, I really enjoy prelims. That's my favorite part of the event.
Yeah.
I've never met someone who says that.
And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to be having this discussion, because I think this is a really important discussion for the community. Is that, like in business, they talk about your stakeholders, right? You have like your employees, you have your shareholders, you have your customers, all the, and you have to manage them, right, in the best way that you can. And so in our case, it's like you have a monetary thing where you're trying to make it a profitable thing so that you can continue to do it. You're trying to make it as enjoyable as possible for the dancers. And then hopefully, because it's as enjoyable as possible for the dancers, it also becomes as enjoyable as possible for the audience. And hopefully, I think things that you could think about with that are like, here's a downside potentially of the Cypher format, is that depending on the size of the contest, there could be a lot of audience members that couldn't see into so I know in battle rap, what happened was that, it's funny, I take so many cues from battle rap, because I feel like it's a scene that is 4 years ahead of the dance scene in terms of the things that it's grappling with, because it's bigger, right?
Yeah.
So they went through a whole thing where everything went onto stages, from this rap battle, like in your face, and now you're on a stage. And it got really corny because it just felt like people reciting poetry to each other.
Yeah.
So one of the main guys named Avocado, he got a place in LA called The Bunker. And what they ended up doing is they built a wooden stage that was like an octagon, and the people would battle in the center of it. So it allowed like 300 people, let's say, and it had levels, and to be able to see.
Yeah, that's really smart.
So what I could imagine, and like this would be, Juice the Boo, like this would be a huge production, Summer Dance Forever kind of thing. But if there were if there were like 4 of those where you could have, and you had a space big enough, and there could be 1,200 people or something, all of them can see whatever cipher they're looking at. I really think
totally
amazing things could come out of it.
Yeah, because that was one of the problems, because they did the battles as well later, and there were issues with seeing and that. But that's also a fact of a lot of competitions as well, which doesn't have proper seating when you do the classic.
Oh, right.
One-on-one.
Correct. Yeah, totally.
So that's not inherently when it comes to ciphers.
An example that I'm thinking of as you say that is like even at freestyle session this year, especially the finals, the vast majority of people were watching screens on the edges of the stage rather than watching the dancers. And I was like, whoa, what kind of weird world are we living in where you're coming to something live and watching it on a screen? I mean, I know that people do that with sports, but the dance is it's so affected. The quality of the dance is so affected by the
how
environment.
much you can see.
I mean as the dancer.
Yeah.
And so if you're in an environment where the vast majority of people that are seeing you they're like turned away from you looking at a screen,
how are they going to give you?
They don't give you any. Yeah, exactly.
And poppers are already struggling with giving as an audience.
Exactly.
Poppers are already struggling with receiving energy from the audience.
Yeah.
And poppers are really bad at giving energy as well.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
So if we create that kind of environment where people aren't gonna be able to, there's issues around this, but I think it's like worth to talk about, because
absolutely,
I think the format can change for the better.
Sure.
And it probably will.
And the beauty is, as I see it, this is one of the main conversations I feel like we have in general, is that all it's really gonna take is one group of people somewhere in the world to do this and make something that's really good, and then the rest of the world can slowly but surely emulate it. And that's what happened with the original probably B-Boy breakdance events, B-Boy Summit and B-Boy Pro-Am and Battle of the Year. It's like they all started seeing, they did that format. Oh, that's interesting. We should, and then gradually something emerges that almost everywhere in the world they kind of do it the same way. But I feel like what has happened now is that it's too big for the current thing. It's like if
What would
you
you say is too big?
the like in China, if you have a prelim with 400 people, the format it broke. Like the prelims,
Yeah,
are,
the 5 people at
prelims
a
are
time,
made.
one
Like I
time.
had a good time. I think we were both there. I had a good time at a Versastyle contest that was held at a dance studio. This is maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And the prelim was like you entered maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I had like 50 people, 40 people, and that was actually enjoyable because that amount of people, it happens fast enough, you know, that in 20 minutes, something
Yeah.
like that, you're done with it, and there's an energy. But beyond a certain number, you just get fatigue. You're like, oh my god, it's still going, and you can start seeing really amazing things, and you're just like, yeah, that's cool, that's really, wow, that person's amazing. But you don't have the energy anymore to keep yeah, oh, you ran out kind of.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that like coming over this issue with the prelim is if we wanna. Not everyone maybe doesn't want to, but if we want competitions to have a bigger audience, I think this is one of the main hurdles to get over. Because
I think too that even as like I completely agree with everything you're saying, and I don't even think you have to go that far, because the main thing is that among dancers who go to events, the vast majority of the time there's a certain amount of like, that happened, like did you have a good time? Yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see everybody and stuff, and like but there's not this feeling of like, whoa, that was amazing. And I don't know, like maybe that's just a thing that you can't hold on to, but I feel like it's worth trying, worth experimenting with. And so I agree that it feels like the way that you start experimenting with these things is you have to start having conversations, and people agreeing, disagreeing, but what about this, but what about that, and then
yeah, as well
merge.
Yeah, as well as the option of picking what you prefer. I think it's good as well. Like, this is something that Sweden struggles with a lot, that we are a very small scene. Stockholm's a scene is a big city of around 2 million people. Maybe a couple of, I don't think we're even about 100 plus poppers. We're very few. So what happens is there's one or two organizers holding events, so everyone goes there, so you can't really pick the format that you like, or if you don't like the vibe to it, it's just you just end up not seeing not that person at all at events, for example. Whereas, like, I would say something that's bigger than like Paris or London or LA, the thing that they have, which is really good, is you can, since a lot of things are happening, you can kind of pick what you prefer.
Yeah,
which is, I think, a good thing.
And one of the things we were talking about, which is related to this before we went live, was that what's interesting is that we both feel that the internet, while it makes everything globally accessible, so theoretically things should be more and more spread out, seems to at the same time, by virtue of all this information getting out, more and more people get to see where the hot spots are for various things.
Yeah.
So it actually draws people to them, and those hot spots, I think they call this in economics like brain drain.
Brain drain and brain gain.
Yeah, what's brain gain?
That's the areas that's the process of an area receiving all the talent, yes, or all the skill.
Yes.
So they get the brain gain. And
yes. And it definitely, I think, let's take a brief moment to advertise the amazingness that is LA right now, where on any given night there's something good going on with someone that you're kind of, wow, I can't believe I'm around this person right now. What is it? You have your little spiel, which I love.
Yeah, it's like you have in a week, you can have classes with Franic, You can have you can train with Jordan. You have classes with Slim Boogie. Tabo teaches. Kid Boogie is teaching as well. Shockwave, Mary Poppins are teaching as well, and there's probably even more
There's
people.
probably many more people.
Yeah.
Versus Style has
Versus
their
style as well.
classes.
And if you do those, yes, those 5 or 7 that
Yeah.
I mentioned, if you put that up as a workshop week in any part of the world, you're gonna have tons of people attend. It's a crazy
Yeah.
weekly schedule
Yeah.
of knowledge
Yeah.
to be able to take from and to
And
to
one of
learn
the
from.
beauties, I have to say, as a resident, because I remember early on in my channel, this Turkish guy, bless his heart, I agree with his sentiment. He said something to me basically like, Otis, like, don't take for granted that you have access to all these
Oh,
people.
not at all.
You know?
That's
and
what I tell people in LA all the time.
And I thought, oh man, you're right. And I started getting like super active after that. And I would say my activeness has sort of leveled off a bit, and it's kind of at this place like this. But I have to say that there's something really amazing to being able to take something for granted, because the brain gain places have so many people taking things for granted that every time something happens, a number of people show up, and it's dynamic, and you get so much cross-pollination, so you don't feel like you have to be involved in everything. It's like a work. It's almost because it's like a work. Like if you did a workshop that just never ended, eventually you would not be going to class every single day, right?
People
You
like
just-
be
But
shrugging that off.
So LA is kind of like that. It's like a workshop
in a way,
week
yeah.
that never ends.
Yeah, and it's probably like if you were to put up that as workshop week, it'd be
And-
one of the best workshop weeks
Exactly,
in the world.
and people are like, you know, that period of time where the Korean Hoan and Kin and JG came. You know, people are coming through also.
Yeah, it was like 70 plus people
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
workshop, and I think that what Europe needs to do, especially the smaller countries,
Yep.
is to because we don't have the amount of human capital when it comes to dance, like human capital, the
Okay, sure.
amount of people,
Sure.
amount of skilled people teaching, doing workshops, battling, sessioning, whatever you want to count as participating in the scenes. I think we need to, and I want to start getting into this as well when I go back to Europe, is to artificially inflate this with having people traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I think the future of the dancing scene in general is to become more connected through travel and the internet.
Yeah.
Because if you have a small, if you have a really small base scene, but you add onto that with skill from other areas, and it'll become mutually beneficial, because you'll have job opportunities for people that want to travel and work with their dance, and we'll be able to learn and vibe with people that are that can contribute to our scene. And I have a really good example of this in Gothenburg, which is the second biggest city in.
I thought it was Gothenburg. Anyway,
I think it's Gothenburg in
Okay.
English.
All right, all
I'm
right.
not sure though, but
How do you say it in Swedish?
Göteborg.
Oh, whoa! I'm so glad I asked that. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
So in Gothenburg we have there's 2 guys, Julian and Eddie, that are ID crew, they call themselves, and they're organizers, they're dancers as well, and they organize a lot of events in Gothenburg. But they held one event called Hip Hop Revolution, which I still think is going on, and I went to that event twice or 3 times, and the vibe was really good. The level was really good for being in a small city. They had international judges. They had really quality workshops. That's where I first got into contact with Christo, taking a workshop from him. And a guy told me, one of the guys, the organizer, he told me that the statistics that they had, like, about, I think, 8% of the visitors over this, that was the 7th year of the festival, of the event, 8% of all visitors were from the local area. Apart from that, people were traveling from different cities and from all across Europe. And some people, like we had one guy from Vietnam, some people from Japan. So I think that can help smaller scenes to artificially inflate.
As far as I know, what you're
level.
describing is literally how Paris became the capital of dance in Europe, if not the world. Because I remember when I was hanging out with people, when I was, just starting with people like Brian Green and Pete and so on, one of the things they would say is that, and I think this is well known at this point, is that the French government provides a number of art grants, as much as probably any
Yeah.
country in the world. And so these Parisian dancers and art groups and art, dance companies would receive art grants to bring in these teachers from the States.
Yeah.
And for the teacher, it was like you're saying, it was win-win, because for the teachers in the States, it was an opportunity for them to be paid like they should be paid. That doesn't seem to happen a lot of the times in the States.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about that, how there's a lack of there's a lack of funding available for dancers.
And I think just in general, I mean, I know that people, I think this has long been the case, that workshops in, for instance, Japan often cost $40 or $50 or something. And that's a very normal price.
Okay, yeah,
And
I didn't know
so
that.
because of this, at least in the past, I think the going rate for workshops in Japan for the teachers was like around $1,000 or something, which, is a significant amount compared to American standards. And I think that it just is kind of the tradition of all kinds of cultures. I feel like especially Black culture is going to Europe or Asia to monetize, because people don't pay, and the audience doesn't have the willingness to pay the way they do in these other countries. And so the reason I say all of this is just that it seems like what you're saying has already worked for, places like, when you think of dance now, if you're not thinking of LA, I think it's like Paris and Tokyo, Osaka, and maybe now Seoul.
Yeah, Seoul probably as well. China is on the way
yes.
as well. People.
Yeah, I have to say, honestly, I feel kind of behind. I feel like I got to go to China at some point, because I feel behind. I really have no idea what's going on in China.
No, I mean, I knew some of the Chinese poppers that are coming over, but I don't know like which cities to look out for.
I mean, I very early on in my channel and my commentaries, I did something about like a American 7 to Smoke, and I got a comment from a Chinese person who was studying in the States and said that in their small city in China, they regularly get like 200 people in a 7 to Smoke prelim.
That's
and
crazy.
They went to an event in the States on the East Coast, and they were having trouble getting 7 people.
Really?
Yeah. So the scale of things is on a whole other level.
I've heard people say that China is probably the biggest dancing scene in the world.
Yeah.
In terms
and they're
of
doing
numbers,
it, right? They're doing it in
probably.
terms of, they brought Diesel, Stakos, Junior Boogaloo, Boo Boo. I think increasingly many of the top dancers are, spending significant amounts of time in
China.
teaching.
China has, it's not a tradition, but they have a tendency to do that with Western sports and culture. They're trying to recruit people in soccer or football.
Sure.
Tennis, baseball
It's
is
very
growing as well. Because they want to compete with the West, not just economically but culturally as well.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if you see the government
I agree.
of China supporting bringing Westerners, specifically Americans, probably when it comes to popping, over to teach and develop, because they want to develop their own scene.
Yeah. So, like, what are the things that you feel like being in LA that LA could learn from other regions in the world that you've either experienced personally or just know about?
First thing, it's not an LA scene thing.
Sure.
It's more of an American.
Yeah.
I guess government thing or like politics thing is. I would love to see the same kind of opportunities for grants and financial support for arts in America
I don't see that
compared to Europe.
I think
and
the American way that's going to happen is through things like crowdfunding.
Probably.
I don't think that it doesn't seem particularly likely to me that our government doesn't seem in any way over my entire lifetime to be trending toward supporting the arts. But crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, Patreon, are growing more and more and more, and I think could be equally powerful and viable. I mean, maybe not, but
Yeah, at least they could be a very good way for grassroots movements,
Right.
which I count street dances
yeah,
as
big time.
being, to circumvent the need of going corporate or going through the government to receive funding, which is a positive thing.
Yeah, actually, I never thought about this, but the battle rap community is definitely moving in the direction of crowdfunding as a way to support itself, because the experiences that the battle rap world has had with corporate sponsorship have been almost universally terrible experiences. And I think that the fact that there's even a sliver of a possibility that we could grow an entire worldwide scene of something that is funded by the participants and the fans of that scene, I think in the long term would allow it to scale in a way that where it's real. Maybe why can we switch to because that's another thing that you were about to say before we went live. You're talking about how things are becoming more real.
Yeah, switch over to the real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's getting harder and harder, I think, in the world in general, with the exception of social media and data, all that Facebook thing with like advertising and stuff. But it's getting harder and harder, I think, to fake a lot of things, because everything's so accessible for people,
transparent
right now. Yeah.
And everything you watch, you now picture the camera that is shooting it in a way that you didn't in the past.
Yeah, it's kind of how old media is in kind of a crisis right now, because everything's so very every politician is media trained, everything's scripted, everything's like so. Whereas that's of like the younger generations, the millennials and Generation X, I think they're called.
Z.
Okay. Yeah, they don't. That's not what they're looking for. Or fast food, for example, McDonald's are having huge losses because people are preferring ethnic food or smaller food trucks, for example. And yeah, the food thing is one thing.
Yeah, that's a good one, because also people are preferring things that are more less processed.
Yeah, and more heart put into it, and more individuality as well. You can have a favorite food truck, whereas a McDonald's is probably going to be the same low quality wherever you go.
Yeah.
And I see that as a really good thing. Like the decentralization away from these types of very corporate oligopolies or monopolies.
You know what's
or
interesting
very big
about it? There's a commentator that I watch on YouTube, and he talks a lot about the differences between old media and new media, and that one of the things with new media is you kind of have to, by virtue of how it works, be able to think on the fly, because like things like this, like dude, the camera's going right now, it's like your ability to keep up and respond intelligently is so evident that it feels like there's starting to be, especially among millennials and especially among Generation Z, it's like if you can't do that, it's a display of weakness in a way. You need editing, you need somebody to tell you what to be saying, because your thoughts are not necessarily your own. And that when
exactly.
And in the past, when all there was old media, you just sort of took it for granted. You go eat at McDonald's, you watch CNN, but now with all of the alternatives, the new things, you're like, wait, that person that no one has ever heard of or something yet, until they blow up on social media, they're really smart. They just set all that stuff right on the fly, and then you go watch old media. And I know I experienced this personally. I have to just turn it off. I'm like, this feels so fake. It's like some robe. Well, hello this evening. How are you, Los Angeles? And you're like,
Yeah, it's usually worthless news, and it's like the quality is usually that low. Like the most enjoyment I get out of watching the news, for example, is like watching news bloopers.
Sure.
because I can find my own. I can update myself on information
Right.
a lot more efficient and a lot more
Right.
interesting
Right.
by finding channels online.
Right. And through people that are not trying to pretend that they don't have a perspective, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, rather than the new way is, rather than trying to take in data from people that are telling you that they're neutral and don't have a perspective, instead the way you can get informed is you take in the perspective of this person who is very biased in their way of thinking, and then you also take in that person's perspective who's very biased, and they have very different perspectives, and then you get to think for yourself, and it kind of forces you to figure out what you think rather than being told what is the right way to
Yeah,
think.
exactly. And I also think that the decentralization of information that comes with media has helped us, not everyone, but a certain a larger group of people that are like so undeniably good. They have certain qualities that you really can't ignore them, and there's great examples within the popping scene, with MT Pop being the first and foremost out of Asia, and I would say as well, like in Europe, I see Enox being one of those as well, because he's very active on social media, and there's a lot of showcases of him. I see him a lot in my
feed.
Yeah, on my
Sure.
on my online.
Yeah, in your online life.
Yeah, in my channels.
Yeah.
And he has other foundations than most people in Europe, where he started with animation and waving, very focused, and then now he's incorporating strutting as well. And I think that those two dancers they're at a level where they'll be really hard to ignore in just give it a couple of months or a year. They're gonna change things, because people, they're like a wrecking ball, and they're so unavoidable.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that everybody needs to deal with, of every age, is that the era of the OGs to the generation that is just starting now, that are teenagers now, it's like ancient history to them. It's, it's like black and white, and it just doesn't have the same relevance when the alternative is to look at people like MT Pop, look at Enox. So the heroes are changing too, and the connection to the past is there, but it's very different than it was. And I think as that happens, everything is going to change, because once the undeniability of these people that have different influences once they are too good to deny, and then they are on top perceptually, then what is accepted and what is what people are trying to become is going to change entirely. And then that to me, I think this for me becomes almost like a kind of closing statement for this, and that's the direction that I personally am going in. It's like skate where the puck is going, and I think the puck is clearly going in the direction of things that are more real, things like Cypher prelims, where you give the audience a simulation as closely as possible to how this thing started, where they feel like they're peeking in on the real thing. And the closer you get to that, the more successful what you're doing will be. And what is acceptable to dance like stylistically and combining things opens up at the same time. It's just skills win.
Yeah, and I see the world connecting a lot more. You have people connecting on social media and YouTube, and then that will feed into traveling and workshops and events and sessions, and that'll allow people to connect from all over the world. And I think that's a huge opportunity for smaller scenes, I guess I would call it, or smaller nations or smaller cities, to try to, because travel is getting cheaper as well. Travel is getting a lot.
Totally.
Like,
and we're just at the beginning of how
yeah,
cheap
like
it
you
could
you
get.
could fly between Sweden and the UK for like $30. It's getting super cheap. So I think that will feed into a positive loop if we capitalize on it. We can't let. I don't think we can let this run through the sand run through our fingers, because we have these opportunities to bring people over to connect with each other, and I think that's like the I think that's the future of popping in Europe, is a lot more travel and a lot more decentralization of where people want to train or get down, or
which foundation they choose.
which foundation they choose, and who they're following, and who they're choosing as mentors and teachers, and I see that as a positive thing.
Yeah, and I would say to the people watching that are in the boat of either already are international dancers or have a dream to become an international dancer, and are, at least some way along that path, like as he said about slipping through the fingers, like this is such a good time to start something. Like all you need is your phone, and you can start some kind of sharing, and that you will be another node that is part of bringing the world together, and that enables like the real thing to grow and scale to a place where this is just a thing like sports or like esports or all of the other sort of competitive artistic pursuits that exist in the world, where they're popular all over the world. Like it's like getting in right now, I believe, is like getting in on the ground floor of the growth of like an entire global artistic movement. And I think whoever has the audacity combined with the skill, like that, to share either skill or perspective that people are taking in, will grow with this. They'll grow as the whole scene grows, or the whole movement grows. I actually like movement better than scene.
Yeah, sounds better.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Coolio.
Awesome. Wow. Dude, just these talks just go forever. I love it. I had no idea
how long we talked for.
48 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Not bad. Okay. We're going to do a commentary now. Peace.